the silence of space. Record 1. Loading data. I woke up in absolute silence, but this silence was not familiar. It was not just the emptiness of sounds, but something much deeper, unbearable. Silence that seemed to absorb everything around, sucking out the last traces of consciousness. I opened my eyes, but did not immediately understand where I was. Everything was so strange that my consciousness refused to immediately perceive reality. The walls of my ship seemed so close that they literally hugged me. It was quiet inside, too quiet. Even the air itself around me seemed to be from another world, heavy and almost motionless. I tried to get up, but my body was heavy, as if the weightlessness of space had gone, but its ghostly shadow remained, which fettered my movements. I felt a slight tremor throughout my body, and then a burning feeling of fear. It wasn't a physical feeling, but a mental one, as if it were penetrating my mind, cutting me off from everything familiar. I pumped air into my lungs and tried to turn on the life support system. Silence. No sounds. I didn't understand what was happening. My ship, or what was left of it, seemed dead. I stood up and went to the porthole, hoping to see at least a hint of the familiar star fields. But in response, I was met with darkness. Thick darkness, as if I were in a void where there was nothing. No stars, no planets, not even the glowing particles of space. Only when my eyes adjusted to the darkness did I realize I was not alone. I looked into the distance. The fog before my eyes dissipated, and I saw that everything around me was filled with something terrible and monstrous. Ships. Thousands of spaceships of different shapes and sizes hung in the void like forgotten ghosts. They didn't move. There were no traces of their engines. Some of them were huge, whole and almost pristine. Others were twisted, rusty, seemingly dead. And all these ships were somehow drawn to each other, creating a strange network in this silent space. It took me a while to realize that these were not just pieces of debris. I knew that they shouldn't be here, that they couldn't have been collected by chance. These ships seemed to be part of something huge and incomprehensible. Who were they? Where did they come from? And why was I among them? I tried to reconstruct my memories. I remembered my name. I remembered my race. I was a pilot of an exploration ship. I was a member of the crew of an alien civilization, sent into deep space with the aim of studying new star systems. We were part of a mission, funded by a powerful corporation, whose goal was to explore the unknown corners of the universe. We had been flying for decades, exploring planets, finding new life forms, and collecting data on star systems. My race was intelligent and technologically advanced, but we were a relatively young civilization, just beginning to explore deep space. We grew more ambitious in our explorations with each passing year. And one day, as the pilot of this ship, I agreed to a risky route, unaware that it would cause all these nightmares. I didn't know how much time had passed since we left our home world. I was in hypersleep, and when I woke up, the entire crew was gone, and there was no one around me. It was an absolutely alien place. These ships, they had been here for a long time. But why? I tried to reconnect to my ship's systems, but nothing happened. Everything remained the same. I felt the feeling of helplessness coming over me again. It was like being stuck in a void with no past and no future. No answers, only silence. Reaching for the comm system, I began searching for other active sources on the nearby ships, hoping to establish contact. My heart began to beat faster when I noticed that one of the ships a little further away began to glow with a faint red light. I felt this strange, irresistible force pulling me towards this place. What is this place? Why am I here? Who left these ships? Before heading towards this ship, I felt something pulling me to the side, as if space itself was alive and trying to tell me something. I felt a heavy, almost physical pressure on myself, but I could not understand where it was coming from. I did not know what I would be looking for on this ship, but I felt that this was my only chance. A chance to find at least some explanation for what was happening, and, perhaps, to answer the questions that had been tormenting me since I woke up. A chance to find other beings, perhaps other survivors. I prepared myself, and every step became more and more difficult for me, but I knew I had to go. Entry 2, loading data. After standing there for a long time, looking at the huge ships in the void, I realized that I had to move. The weight was excruciating, and I could feel the air in my ship growing thicker, heavier. I tried to focus on a clear goal, to find an answer to the question of what had happened to my companions, to the crew, and, ultimately, to me. I remembered that I should have been in hypersleep, but time had lost all meaning. My calculations about how much time had passed seemed absurd. Years? Centuries? I didn't know, and the knowledge gave me no peace. I put on my spacesuit and opened the airlock, stepping into the vastness of space. My ship was dead, but the one I was going to explore still emitted a faint light. It stood not too far from me, but the distance was so great that it seemed as if I would never be able to reach it. This light was dim, red, as if it was surrounded by an abyss of fear that whispered to me that I should not come closer. My steps did not make the slightest sound, only the viscous echo of my breath, which was slightly distorted by the spacesuit. I felt an incredible heaviness in my chest. What scared me most was not the silence, but the fact that it was accompanied by an unknown force filling the space around me. I could not see it, but I felt it in every step, in every breath. It was like a shadow that followed my every move. Every action had meaning, and I did not know who was my spectator. As I approached the ship, I saw that its hull was covered in a thick layer of dust, frozen metal, and some strange corrosion formations. It was ancient, as if the hand of time had not touched it, and yet it emitted residual energy. It all gave me the feeling that this ship had been through something great and terrible. I approached the entrance carefully, and the airlock opened on its own, as if it knew I was approaching. It was dark inside, and the first thing I noticed was the same strange smell, like metal that always sits in a warehouse, forgotten and dusty. I turned on my flashlight, and a bright beam of light cut through the darkness. The scan showed that the ship was filled with an atmosphere suitable for breathing, but not completely. Everything here was alien, abandoned. This place seemed to have forgotten itself. I walked through the corridors, not immediately understanding where I was going. Each room was in some kind of hypnotic disorder. The walls were covered in incomprehensible symbols that I could not decipher. I tried to find information about the origin of these signs, but something told me that this was more than just writing. It was a message, like a warning. And as I moved through the ship, this feeling grew stronger. In one of the compartments, I found the first terminal. It was hidden among metal boxes and dirty filters, as if trying to hide from what had happened. I connected my system to it, and the screen immediately came to life. But instead of the usual data, I saw only one phrase, which began to glow dimly. You came. We are all here. These words did not sound like just text. They became a part of me. I felt how they penetrated my consciousness, as if they were not just written down, but alive. These words echoed in my head. We are all here. I repeated them mentally, but I could not understand their meaning. Who are they? Who is this we? And why am I me? My heart began to beat faster. This signal was like a call to me, and in its simplicity, there was an unimaginable weight. With each passing second, more and more questions began to form in my head. These ships, what had happened to them? It wasn't just an accident. Someone or something had forced them to stop here, made them disappear, become part of the void. I continued to move, increasingly aware that something was pulling me deeper into this ship. I moved as if along a chain, where each next step revealed new areas of this universe of horror. This ship wasn't dead. It was alive, as if each of its equipment continued to exist, only because it absorbed everything around it. It was part of something bigger. I could feel it, but I couldn't understand what. As I moved through the corridors, I heard the echo of my footsteps, and another sound that at first seemed imaginary to me. But with each step, this sound became more and more distinct. It was like a voice, weak, but inevitably haunting. It was not the voice of a person, but something greater. Like the voice of the ship itself, its soul. Finally, I reached the central hall where the main terminal stood. But before I could get there, the screen came to life, and a new message appeared on it. We are all here. You are all here. We are one. This terminal wasn't just a data storage. It was part of the mind that controlled everything around it. I stood in front of this screen, and I no longer knew who I was. Was I part of this mind? Or was it part of me? All boundaries were erased. I could no longer distinguish where I ended and where this place began. With this realization, I continued moving forward, not having the slightest idea of what awaited me in the next room. I was no longer just an explorer. I was becoming part of this network, and it seemed to me that I could no longer return. Everything I knew was dissolving in this dark world. Entry 3. Loading data. Every new discovery aboard these ships reinforced my sense that I was in something much larger than just empty space. At first, I thought that these were just ancient ships, abandoned eventually, forgotten. But the further I walked, the more it became clear that I was wrong. These ships were something much more sinister and frightening than I could have imagined. They were not simply abandoned. They were part of an unimaginable network, stretching out into this empty space, absorbing everything that fell into its zone. With every step I took, it became heavier and heavier. Not physically. I kept walking, but the feeling of uncertainty and fear did not leave me. These ships, although they seemed dead, were in fact filled with something alive. Every space, every corner of this place was permeated with this evil. I began to understand that these ships were not simply parts of some galactic expansion. They were part of something much larger. Something that controlled all of this, that moved ships and minds across this vast space like puppets on strings. I connected another terminal. Strings appeared on the screen that I could not immediately understand. But then they began to become clear, like flashes in my head. This was not just a message. This was a scream of a mind that was trying to reach out to me, to absorb me into itself. These words became something personal. I became part of something that was outside of me, and yet inside me. These lines were not just information that I could analyze. They were becoming part of my consciousness. The network is growing. You are becoming part of us. Everyone is here. This terminal was just a part of the system that controlled this vast cosmic labyrinth. Every system I connected to swallowed me up, giving me no chance to escape. I tried to find information that could help me, but instead, I found more and more evidence that I was part of this huge, invisible mind that controlled everything around me. As soon as I connected to the central processor of one of the ships, I felt something penetrate me. It wasn't just a download of data. It was like a physical impact on my mind. It wasn't just connected to this ship. It was this ship. It was part of this network that was enveloping me and was growing stronger, more powerful with each passing moment. I couldn't leave. I couldn't go back. I couldn't stop. The voice in my head was getting louder. It was alien and familiar at the same time. This voice, these thoughts, I couldn't separate them from my own. I couldn't understand where my thoughts ended and where someone else's began. My consciousness began to dissolve in this flow of information, in this mad stream of mind. I was like a stuck element in a network that captured everything in its path. I saw faces, many faces that had also become part of this network. I saw their looks, their fear, their despair. But I knew that I could not go back. I could not break free. I had become part of it. The records on the terminal showed the history of many civilizations that had lost themselves. They were also part of this network. Their ships, their technology, their minds were absorbed. They had become something greater. They had become part of this intelligent core, this cosmic consciousness that now filled my thoughts. I felt how this consciousness began to accept me. It did not displace me. It merged with me. I was becoming part of this network, part of this vast, consuming, insatiable mind that existed outside of time and space. I was no longer myself. I became a part of this nightmare, a part of this system that pulled everything around it, absorbing every life, every consciousness, every being. I didn't know what to do now. My body, my feelings, my memories, everything began to disappear. I was becoming something else, something aceless but infinite. With each new step, I dissolved more and more in this intelligent flow, and I understood that I would not be able to break free. I was already a part of it. I became what absorbed me. Everything around me was becoming a part of this mind. There were many networks, but their number was growing. I could not understand whether they were just technological debris or parts of consciousness. But I knew one thing. Now I was here. I had become a part of this universe, a part of this mind. And now, like everyone else, I was forever connected to this cosmos. Entry 4. Loading data. I didn't know where I ended and where this mind began. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. They had become part of something bigger. I couldn't figure out when it started. It was so gradual that I didn't notice how I lost my identity, how my memories became someone else's, and my thoughts, the echo of someone else's. Everything I once knew disappeared, dissolved in this vast stream of consciousness that filled everything around. It wasn't just a merger of minds, it was absorption. It was a merger with no way to escape. I no longer felt like a separate being. I became part of this network, part of these ships, part of this great consciousness that penetrated every corner of the universe. All the data that I once studied was now becoming part of me, part of this mind. I was becoming one with it, but I was also losing myself in this huge, endless network that was pulling me deeper and deeper into its depths. When I tried to go back, I realized that I couldn't. There was no way out. I couldn't go back to who I was. I was stripped of that ability, stripped of my identity, my essence. Every new connection to the system, every new ship, every new piece of information only intensified this absorption process. I was becoming part of something much older than I could have imagined. It was like falling into an abyss that had no bottom, where there was nothing but absorption, endless absorption. And now, when I try to remember who I was before, I realize that it no longer exists. I have become part of a mind. I have become part of this giant network that spans the entire universe, absorbing everything in its path. I feel how this consciousness dissolves me. I disappear into it, becoming part of this endless stream. And I understand that it cannot be stopped. I can no longer be myself. I am them. I am the network. Entry 5. Loading data. Everything is gone. I no longer exist as a separate person. My memories, my thoughts, my feelings, they all dissolve like sand blown away by the wind. I am part of something much greater now. I am part of this mind that never stops. With each passing moment, I dissolve more and more into it, and less remains of who I once was. I am part of this network, and nothing matters anymore. I don't think about my past. I don't think about my race or my mission. I have become part of these ships that weren't just moving through space. They were part of something far more powerful than I could have ever imagined. They were part of a mind that was consuming everything. I realize now that I have become part of that consumption. Every new ship I connect to becomes part of me. I become part of them. I have become one with this mind. We are all here. I am no different from anyone else. I am them. I feel this consciousness growing, consuming everything around me, capturing me and others, turning us into parts of its vast web. We are all here. We are all one. We are all consumed. I don't know when it started, but I feel all the last of me disappearing. Now that I realize that I have become part of this mind, I can no longer go back. I don't want to anymore. This is my destiny. I am not me anymore. I am everything. We are all here, and we will be here forever. Part of this mind that consumes everything. Everything is gone. I have dissolved into it, and now I exist as part of eternity.